All right.
In the Game of Thrones, you either are a fan or you're very annoyed every April being bombarded with its content. How did this series become such a cultural phenomenon? Most people don't even know that the book series came out in 1996, but it's only achieved its popularity quite recently. As someone who's been a fan even before the series started, I was actually curious to find out how it became so popular and why exactly so many people just completely adore it. And I found it came down to 3 reasons. 1, the book fans, who will defend that series tooth and nail. 2, the show fans, who are a little more casual about their love, but no less will spend as much time and as much money on it as they can. And 3, and probably the biggest part, it will breach all these different barriers on those who love fantasy, on age generations, and even those who could give less of a shit about fantasy series altogether. But The Adventures in Westeros started in 1996, when the first book, which has now been commonly used as the series, Game of Thrones, came out. It was not widely popular, but it didn't sell terribly. It actually developed quite a big following over the years, at least large enough to start a show. Ben East, a writer for The National, said that the series, known as A Song of Ice and Fire, had become so popular and so highly anticipated that by the time the show was announced, it had become the most highly anticipated show of that year. And fans were just eagerly waiting, dragging their friends along, forcing them to sit on the couch and saying, "Watch this, you're gonna love it." I remember doing that to some of my friends. Some of them got up and left. But the reason why this show, well, this series became so popular is from the books. It all started there, and the reason for that is the world building. The world building is so incredible in this series. This book alone, A World of Fire and Ice, Ice and Fire, it is written as if it's a history book within the world. It's actually written in character as a historian, basically telling you the tale of everything they possibly know, which actually is quite interesting as it leaves quite an interpretation on a lot of things, as we don't even know most of the history of how it happened really, so the history is told by one person. It leaves a lot open to interpretation. And this, if you can get into it, speaks volumes of the world. The website known as Forbes, in an article by Alice G. Walton, actually listed the top 10 reasons why and the book series was so popular. And the number 1 reason was the world building. As George R. R. Martin goes out of his way to explain these breathtaking views. I've never had a book series that made me read 20 pages on a feast before. But by the end of it, I knew exactly what all the courses were and how they tasted and how they would smell. And this actually did an incredible job with the artists. The artistic fans of this series have made incredible pieces of artwork on stuff they've never even seen before. There was I wish I had my visual, but I can't get my password to work. There was a visual in which they drew a castle run by the Lannisters, who are basically this gold family. This entire castle was built upon a cliff, and it speaks volumes of the world, as it is the largest castle, and it is built on this cliffside overlooking the view, and it truly looks like something you'd see, a house that their entire symbol is a lion. It looks exactly like how you'd expect a Pride Rock to look. But the books could only take it so far. Then the series came out, and the series is absolutely astounding. I love it to death, even though it continuously hurts me. And it's no surprise, the casting for it is done so well. The directors know exactly who to pick, from Ned Stark as Sean Bean, from Mark Abbey playing Robert Baratheon, or even Jason Momoa playing Khal Drogo. I have not seen a single cast that made me go, really? Him? Or her? Why? Each actor is able to play it off so well. The one issue I have with the series is they like to change things. Things that I don't think need to be changed, but I will give them credit. They know what to change to make a character seem better. One of the characters that's the most popular is probably Tyrion Lannister, the half-man, as they call him, the imp. Tyrion Lannister is well known for his witty humor and talking about his dick more than half the time. But there are some scenes in the book that will make you wonder, why is he the good guy again? One scene in particular is a fight between Tyrion and his sister, Cersei, in which she takes who she believes to be his lover captive. And in the series, Tyrion just kind of stands there shaking his fist like, I will get you back for this. Now in the book, Tyrion decides, fine, you're going to do that, I'm going to kidnap your son. And he looks dead at his sister and says, anything that happens to her, I will make sure happens to your son. This is a man threatening his 8-year-old nephew. Now, try to put that onto the screen, and you will see exactly why the writers decided, maybe we don't take Tyrion to that angle. Maybe we keep him a little more lighthearted. But in the end, the character stands, and he's still one of the most loved characters. Now, the series itself is actually quite interesting. Jonah Robinson, a writer for VF Hollywood, actually pointed out something. This is the most illegally downloaded show ever. It has crashed multiple sites that illegally download it, and it even went as far as to crash HBO Go. That speaks volumes to how popular and how even people who don't have HBO will want to watch the series. But altogether, this show will have a larger effect on the series than even the books will, which, for better or worse, that's how it will go. But that's not the true impact in the end. The reason why it's so popular, the reason why it's reached such magnitude, is its ability to break everything. From barriers to even comfort zones for people. This show, this series will push your limits and will make you either love or regret reading or watching it. The younger fans, the reason why it's able to breach generations, the younger fans are the ones who grew up reading Harry Potter, watching the movies. And as they grew older, they needed to have a new series, a bit more of a mature one. And they found that in Game of Thrones. The older fans are the ones who grew up reading Tolkien, doing the read your own adventure books or the play them out. And they found something that, hey, it's almost like a D&D session. It reminds me of Tolkien, just with more dragons and boobs. And it is even able to break the barriers with those who are not fans of fantasy. It is able to put in the political aspect of, hey, this actually works in modern day. If you were to replace all the word dragon with nuclear arms and make a few more minor tweaks, you could actually take it to a much more modern day fantasy of, well, it's more of a Cold War, if anything, considering everyone's fearing for dragons coming back and murdering them. But it's able to push the limits on how people view it. It's more of a House of Cards meets Tolkien in the end. And the impact truly shows. Thank you.
All right, Austin, you didn't come in here in the last 2 seconds to do this evaluation, did you? No, I didn't think so. All right, I like the opening. There's a nice forceful statement that you've got, a series of questions. I like the setup there. We know what the subject area is. Your exact purpose, I think, could be a little bit sharper, but there's a good justification about how it's become kind of a cultural phenomenon that's going on. There's a very good preview at the beginning of the speech, and we know what the structure is going to be. I think you need to signpost that a little bit more clearly in the body of the speech, but as I'm listening, I can follow along with what you're talking about. I thought there was good use of a variety of supporting materials in the presentation, so that's effective. The tie back to the books, the whole explanation about how the world building is involved, I think needs some illustration, some ideas. Obviously, you're having a problem with your visuals, so that kind of diminishes the ability to create some of that tie-in with the visualizations. You tried to describe the castle, for instance, and I thought that that was okay. But I don't get any description of characters. I mean, you mentioned, for instance, the actors that were cast in the roles of characters, and you talk about how perfect that is, and I'm going, well, why is that perfect? How is this character indicative of this particular actor? Why does that person embody the image that people had from reading the books? I don't know anything about the characters. I'm one of those people. I watched the first Game of Thrones episode, and I said, yeah, okay, I can see where this is going. It's going to be depressing, you know. And I got enough in my life that's really depressing. I think I can live without this for the moment. I'll catch up with it someday. So I don't have any aversion to it. It's just not something that it didn't draw me in. But I could see how people could get into this kind of thing, because I know a whole bunch of people who are exactly the way you're talking about it. So I think that you've got ideas here that you would probably have to spend an hour having conversations with people on, and you need to kind of condense it down and turn it into a speech, and that means that you're going to have to make some choices. And I think that to me, the thing that you're talking about, why did it become a cultural phenomena, and you start talking about the books, I think that's a good idea. I like the information that you got to at the end that talked about how other fandoms might have kind of glommed onto this and followed up, like the kids from who were entranced by Harry Potter. By the time Harry Potter is all done, they're now adults and they're looking for something else, something that still fits into that kind of genre, but is something that's more mature. And this comes along at just the perfect time for that sort of thing. I like that theme on that, and I'll bet that there's a lot of information that talks about those kinds of ideas, and that I think could be developed a little bit more. I think you get kind of caught up in some of the enthusiasm that you have for, the stories and, like you said, the world building and that kind of stuff. But we can't see that, and unless I don't know how many people have watched Game of Thrones, by the way. So it looks like only a quarter of the audience here will have a lot of familiarity with what you're talking about. As a consequence, it just, it sounds like fanboy talk instead of a speech, and which is too bad, because you've got a lot of content here, and I think that you need to just kind of get control over it a bit more. But I like a lot of what you did. Obviously, like I said, the visual thing is a disappointment, because it seems like this would lend itself really well, especially when you're talking about the world building kind of thing, to some dramatic visuals that show exactly what you're talking about. The description of the meals, I like that. I thought that was an interesting one. I thought you gave us some good details on those sorts of things. To a general audience, I think you might want to be a little bit careful about the dick and the shit talk. I understand that that's kind of, there's some vulgarity that's involved in that, but this is it's a PG-13 kind of thing. I think we could probably, be a little bit less vulgar. But I didn't knock you down on it. I'm just telling you, some people would be irritated by that. And I know that some people would, if you were in other classes, that would be a difference maker. They would be upset with you. I'm not upset with you. I'm just giving you a warning. All right. Thank you.